Hi, welcome back. In this session, we'll try to give the demonstration on Metasploit. So the Metasploit there are several different ways to interact with Metasploit, but we will focus on using the menu-driven, non-graphical user interface, text-based system called the MSF console. So we just give the MSF console here, the MSF console. So it is easiest way to access this MSF console by just opening the terminal window and entering the MSF console in the terminal. So the MSF console can also be accessed through the application menu on the desktop, but starting with the MSF console by giving this, it takes some seconds of time to start this MSF console, around 10 to 5 seconds time that it will take to access this. So as the MSF, by giving the MSF console, it started uh, the Metasploit. Okay, and then we'll enter into the Metasploit will start by presenting you with the welcome banner and an MSF command prompt. So when the Metasploit first loads, it shows you the number of exploits. So that is 2404 exploits and number of auxiliary ports and the number of posts and number of payloads, encoders, and no operation one. So we'll see this one by one. In the exploit one, in this auxiliary module, you find 1239 auxiliary modules are there. So in this auxiliary module, do not exploit a target but can perform useful tasks such as the administration. So in the administration task, you can modify, operate, or manipulate something on target machine. And another task, it performs the analyzing task in auxiliary mode. So tools that perform analysis, mostly the password cracking. And another task in this auxiliary mode is gathering task. So that gather, collect, and enumerate data from a single target. And another task in this auxiliary mode is denial of service task. So in this task, it crash or slow a target machine or slow the service. And in the scanning task under this auxiliary module, that scans the targets for non vulnerabilities. And the server support task under this auxiliary module, that run servers for common protocols such as SMB, FTP, the telnet, SSH, etc. So another module that we are finding here is encoders module, right? So there are 47 encoders are there in this Metasploit module. So these encoders take the raw byte of a payload and run some sort of encoding algorithms like bitwise XOR operation. So these modules are useful for encoding bad characters such as null bytes. And you find here another one is the exploit module. So in the exploit module, in this exploit module, you are having 2404 exploits. So exploit modules are used to leverage vulnerabilities in a manner that allows the framework to execute arbitrary code. So the arbitrary code that is executed is referred to as the payload. So there are 1468 payloads are there. So in this module, payload module, in the context of Metasploit exploit modules, payload module encapsulate the arbitrary code, that is cell code, that is executed as the result of an exploit succeeding. So this normally involves the creation of a Metasploit session, but may instead execute code such as adding user accounts or executing a simple pingback command that verifies that code execution was successful against a vulnerable target. Payload modules can also be used individually to generate a stand-alone executable or shell code for use within exploits. And then you are finding there are nine aviations are there. So this aviation module gives framework users framework users the ability to generate evasive payload that aim to evade antivirus such as Windows Defender without having to install external tools. And you're finding the NOPs here. The NOPs module, there are seven NOPs module are there in this Metasploit. So NOPs module at the time of recording, there are 11 NOPs are there. So this NOP modules short for no operation, so that generate a sequence of no operation instructions that perform no side effect. So these nopes are often used in conjunction with stack buffer overflows. So these are different modules and their task, how they are going to perform in the MSF console. So now let us see this. Uh, it gives that in order to use the Metasploit, what we need, a target must be identified. So in our case, for this demonstration purpose, the target is identified, that Windows operating system which is running on my virtual machine, and the target is identified based on its IP address, that is 192.168.1.11 is the target. Then we must exploit this target. So to exploit this target, what is the first step? We need to find what are the vulnerabilities are there in this particular target machine. So to identify the vulnerabilities on this target machine, we use the nmap scan script. So nmap script, the script engine is used. So in this nmap script engine, we use the command that nmap dash dash script and the category. The category we are interested to find the vulnerability on the target machine Windows. So that Windows, the target is at 192.168.1.11. And to speed up this vulnerability scanning, we are giving this command for scanning, to speed up the scanning, that minus T4 range. Okay, by issuing this command, it starts scanning the vulnerability, is one way. Another way of scanning the vulnerabilities by using the Nessus tool. So in the Nessus tool, I try to scan that my target, which is the Windows XP. On the, if you click on that Windows XP, the host is one at the IP address 192.168.1.11. When it starts scanning, it identifies there are 23 vulnerabilities are there. So in this vulnerabilities, it gives the ranking, that which vulnerabilities, how in the ranking side, that the critical, high, medium, low, and some information. So there are, in this vulnerability, there are four critical vulnerabilities are there, and two high vulnerabilities, and three the medium vulnerabilities are there. So to check it out, these vulnerabilities, if we click on the vulnerabilities, it will display all these vulnerabilities, what are the different vulnerabilities are there. So if we are interested to find out the critical vulnerabilities, if you click on that Microsoft and the critical vulnerabilities, if you click on the mixed vulnerabilities, which give you the some kind of vulnerabilities on the target system. One is the MS09 vulnerability. This is the missing package. Another one is MS08. MS-17 vulnerabilities. So if you get to get the more information about this, if you click on that, it will give the description that this MS-09001 vulnerability is the Microsoft Windows SMB vulnerability for the remote code execution. So for this remote code execution, it gives the description that the remote host is affected by the memory corruption vulnerability in the SMB server. So that may allow the attackers to execute arbitrary code to perform a denial of service attack against the remote host. So if you click on suppose the MS-17 missing package, that security updates for Microsoft Windows SMB server. So in this, the multiple remote code execution vulnerabilities existing on the target system. So the remote Windows host is affected by this. So what happens? It will allow for the attackers via the specially crafted packets. So, an unauthenticated remote attacks can exploit this via the specially affected packets. So these are some of the vulnerabilities. So these vulnerabilities must be identified. So when the scan is over, you can find here in the scan, you find that the vulnerability in the script result, you can check the vulnerability is the MS-17010 vulnerability is there. That is the remote code execution vulnerability in the Microsoft SMB1 server, which is identified from the common vulnerability exposures. And another result that you can find the host the script result that you can find, another result is MS-08067 is also missing here. Okay, so once you identify these vulnerabilities on the target system, okay, so, and when you start running your Metasploit to attack the target system, that is Windows, you must identify the exploit on this MSF. So there are 2,404 exploits are there in the exploit module. You must select the exploit from this any one exploit, and after that, on this particular exploit, you need to a payload needs to be picked out for this exploit purpose. Then the exploit itself must be launched. So in this, a exploit is pre-packaged snippet of code. The exploits are these are the pre-packaged snippet codes that get sent to the remote system. In our case, on the remote target system is Windows. So this code causes some a typical behavior on the target system that allows us to execute a payload. So payload is also a small block of code that is used to perform some task like installing new software. When these payloads are given, they try to installing new software or creating new users or opening backdoors on the target system. So the steps here, as we said, the vulnerabilities are the weakness that allows the attackers to exploit these systems and execute remote code on the target. Payloads are the additional software or functionality that run on the target system once the exploit has been successfully executed. So by starting this MSF console, to interact with the MSF console, the Metasploit is like a scalpel, not the hat check. So rather than blindly spraying exploits at a target, penetration testers needs to find a way to match up known system vulnerabilities with the prepackaged, the exploits in the Metasploit. So to correlate a target's vulnerability with Metasploit exploit, pen testers needs to review our findings in the scanning. So the findings, so that gives, but the findings purpose we use the nmap script engine as well as nessus. So the nessus is A vulnerability scan as said and provides us with the list of known weaknesses which we just identified for our target system. The known vulnerabilities which is given that the missing patches like MS17 hyphen 010 and MS08 is given, and MS09 is also given here. So and it also given the rankings here. So assume in this case, the pen as a pen test, we uncovered a new target, at the IP address like 192.168.1.11. In this case, that is our target IP, which we identified here. So we identified these and their critical values also. So then, what is the next step? So specifically in Microsoft Patch, we just identify these MS17. So on the Metasploit, the easy way to identify the remote code execution for this missing patches. So in the MSF console, we use the search command because there are 2404 exploits are there, but we are specifically looking for a vulnerability which is having here is suppose for example the MS 17017. So try to search this exploit here like MS uh, 17.010. So it will identify out of 2000 404, it identifies these exploits. So there are 29 exploits are there, 29 exploits which are related to exploit these particular vulnerability, right? So in this exploit, what we can do, the Metasploit will search through its information and returns any relevant information on it. So here you find there are the exploit modules here. One is they are identified with the sequence here, the option number sequence given 0, 1, 2, 3, and their description is given, disclosure is given that exploit Windows SMB MS17017, the eternal blue. And this exploits gives the description that the it is the ranking is average. Okay, the rank is given, it is average. And the description is MS017, that eternal blue SMB remote Windows kernel protocol. And here if you see the 10th option, the exploit Windows SMB, the missing package, it allows you for remote execution, code execution also. So it gives the details that the eternal the romance eternal system that will allow you to remote Windows code execution. Here it is the remote Windows kernel, pool corruption. Here is a remote code execution. So for our demonstration, we try to execute the remote Windows code execution on that. So after getting the Metasploit found the matching exploit, we provided us the several piece of the information about this exploit, right? So it is important to pay close attention to this exploit and their rankings. So the next what we need to do, we need to just check it out. We need to use this Metasploit to run on the target machine. So we use the command use, and suppose we wants to go with this exploit, then either you can use write this entire the exploits name, or you can use the sequence number. So the sequence number is 10 here, so I would like to use the sequence number 10, use 10th exploit in that exploit module. Okay, so then that will trying to use that exploit model. So here we haven't set any payload at now, so payload no payload is configured. So by default for this exploit, it takes the Windows Meterpreter reverse service TCP, reverse service TCP. So to get to set this payload for this exploit, you can use the command that show options. You can use the command show options, so it will give you, what are the required information is there. So here you can find the in the show options command, you can see the local host IP address. My IP address is 192.168.1.6, which is running on local port is 444444. So in this option, by selecting this payload option, to select one of the payloads, to select one of the payloads, we type set payload, which followed by the payload name into the MSF, into the MSF. So to select the payload, any one of the payload for it, by default it takes the Meterpreter in our case by default. So we just go with this Meterpreter only, the Windows Meterpreter payload, that is by default it is setting for this exploit. In that, once you go with the show options, it give you whether the remote host is configured or not. So here you can see the remote host, which requires the current settings are required here. So here the required is yes, but which is not yet set. So needs to set the local host. To set the local host, we use the command here is, let me just decrease this. We use the command here is set the remote hosts, sorry, remote host, and give the IP address of our target machine. Target machine IP address is 192.168.1.11, and by hitting the enter, it set the remote host. So it is better to check again the show options, whether it is successfully set or not, by clicking that. Oh, sorry, there is a typing mistakes, let me correct it. Okay, by issuing the show options, you can check local host is running on 192.168.6, and the remote host is running on the IP address 192.168.11, and the remote and running on the report port is 445. So the server is running on port number 445, right? So once you are sure that you have entered all the information correctly, you are ready to launch your exploit. So to send your exploit to the target machine, simply we type the in this MSF console, simply we type the exploit in this terminal. So once we type this, it is trying to connect the, let me just close this. Okay, so it is trying to, oh, oh, I'm sorry, let me just repeat the steps here for giving the MSF console. Take some time, let me do quickly for you. Okay, I would just like to show this. Okay, so let me just clear the screen so that you can find. So we are searching for the vulnerability, that is MS17 at 010. It finds the exploits, then we use the exploit 10, so that is going to use, and then we try to so it is taking the Metasploit as by default. Then just clear the screen there. We are just looking to set the remote host. So the remote host running on 192.168.1.11. Then the payload is also set, that is Meterpreter, Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP. And we just check whether these options are sent or not. If you simply give the options command, it will show all the payloads, and it checks the local host is running, your remote host is running on this IP address. So now it's good to go to run the payload on the to send your exploit to the target machine. Simply we give the exploit command, so it will start running on the target machine. Okay. So, in this, after sending the exploit command, to understand what is going on here, you need to build your understanding of buffer overflows and exploitations. So, after typing the exploit, Metasploit will go off and do its thing and sending exploits and payloads to the target, uh, and it start creating. So the exploit completed, but no session was created on that. So in that case, suppose let me go back. If I use the exploit, suppose 0, so then it the by default it takes the eternal blues, the payload meterpreter reverse TCP, and then you just check it out the options. So for that, let me just set the uh, remote host for this. Let me just set the remote host. IP address is 192.168.1.11, and then check the options. Show options. So local host is also set up, target host is also set up. Then we try to exploit it. When everything is correct, then we try to exploit it. It is trying to connect with the target one. So because our payload in this example is Meterpreter, it is going to connect with the session one. So the scanned one session and it is established. So like that, you try to connect with the target system. So what are the different exploits that will be used to execute the code? You can use the different exploits. So let me again just check it out. Mm, just go back and just search for the MS17.010 and try to the go with the different options. So in this, we'll suppose go with the option like exploit Windows SMB double pulsar. So that is for remote code execution. For 60, it is for the operating system payload, execute payload is 64 SMB double. So suppose if he wants to run some target automatic targets or corruption. So let us go with the PowerShell. uh, for this, the PowerShell, it is the option 12. We'll try to run this, use option 12 exploit. So it takes Meterpreter, then set a remote host, the remote host, that 192.168.1.11. So I'm just taking this for further use. Let me just copy this and run it, just exploit. So in this, the Metasploiter is trying to establish a connection this is doing the exploitation one. So in this MSF console, these are the basic steps which needs to be the identified. So here, very interesting one is the exploit is completed, but nothing is exploited. So let us try to run this whether it will work or not by just giving the command run command. So it started the reverse TCP handler on the 192.168.1.6, which is running on port that is localhost, running at the port number 444. So here also the no session is created. So let me just go back and check for the use of suppose 10. Let me check it out and set the remote host for this. Remote host is set, then trying to run it. Let us see what happens there. What Metasploiter is doing there. So in this, you are finding the bind payloads and the reverse payload. So you are having two, that TCP bind and TCP reverse code. So the last Metasploit topic which we need to discuss here is the Metasploiter, which is going to be taken here. So in this Metasploiter function is a manner similar to Windows CMD execution code. So in this example, this Metasploiter cell is now able to function with all the privileged and the rights of your root accounts. So here you can go with, you can identify there is a power cell here. The power cell, let us try to use this power cell also to execute. Its ranking is given like command prompt for remote Windows command execution. Let us try to use this 19. No, another exploit, Windows double pulsar. Let us try this to execute. Uh, Use the 27. Go back. Use 27, and it is configured payload Windows XP Metasploiter reverse TCP, and set the target. Then simply run it. So here no session. The MSF says that the option validation error, one or more options fail to validate the local host. So here you can check it out. The options, in the option local host is not configured, so you need to set this local host, the local host, that is we are running at 192.168.1.6. By setting this, and after that you start running. So the exploit is completed but no session is given. So these are some of the examples which you can try. So the once the Metasploiter get the many features that running this executable code. So let me just quickly stop this session here. In the next session we'll try to discuss the Metasploiter. So what this session gives the summary, that we'll just go back, just clear all the step-by-step process. In the summary we can say that first we use the search your ms 17 iphone 010. Okay, that is, once we search this, then you find the number of exploits based on this, and then we use the command use the exploit. So the exploit can be given by the numbers also. The use number 1, that gives the exploit Windows SMB, the eternal blue. If you go back, if you use the exploit. Suppose 2, it says Windows SMB for eternal blue. It takes the Metasploit is the reverse one, the second SMB. Okay. And if you use, go back, so this is the way how we select, use, suppose 2. Okay. If you use suppose 0, then it is Windows SMB eternal blue. And its description, if you select the options, it will give all the payload options here. Or you can search the payloads here by just giving the show payloads. So it will give all the related payloads on this. So you can use the different payloads here. So there are 73 payloads are there in this case, right? So in this 73 payloads, how the Metasploit will be used, we'll discuss in the next session.